Hi, this is Randi Altman from postPerspective, and welcome to the latest edition of our Meet the Artist podcast. In this episode, we chat with PBS Chief Digital and Marketing Officer, Ira Rubenstein. We hope you enjoy.
So I'm Randi Altman with postPerspective, and we're here at NAB New York 2025, and we're going to talk about PBS, technology, path to career, and all of that. So Ira, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So at PBS, what is your title?
I am the Chief Digital and Marketing Officer at PBS.
Can you tell me what that means? Because I know that not all titles reflect so much as day-to-day.
So my responsibility is over distribution and marketing. So the creative marketing, our business intelligence. I also oversee our business development team with distribution for our local stations, the live linear deals. And then also includes our product team, our apps, our network infrastructure, satellites, things like that.
So give us an example of something that maybe you did yesterday at the job.
I would say yesterday, we've been working very closely on the Ken Burns upcoming film on the American Revolution. And so we've been finalizing those sort of marketing and media plans, as well as the creative around those campaigns. So that was probably something I did yesterday.
Let's talk about your path to PBS. What inspired you into this industry? How did you get to where we are today?
My career path started in Hollywood. I started my career at 20th Century Fox in theatrical marketing. And at that time, the internet was before the web. And I started building some of the first downloadable press kits and putting trailers up for download. And then the web came along, and I built some of the first movie websites, Die Hard with a Vengeance and Power Rangers at Fox. And then moved over to Sony Pictures, where I launched their first websites, The Net, Johnny Mnemonic. And I did that for about 4 years, and doing digital media, buying some of the very first ads on the internet, streaming the very first trailers on the internet, and then eventually at Sony, working with corp development team, built out one of the first movie download services called MovieFly, Movie Link, that we ended up selling to a partnership of studios. So working at Sony and doing mobile games and this kind of all sorts of digital marketing. And then took a career path over to Marvel Studios and working on digital comics.
You hit all the big ones.
And the very beginning, right when Disney bought Marvel, launched the Marvel digital comics app on the iPad. That was very well received, and one of the first apps that was sent out by Steve Jobs for press to look at on an iPad. And then eventually went back actually to 20th Century Fox and did a little more film marketing, digital. And then this opportunity about 11 years ago now came up at PBS. And what I loved about it was I really liked the CEO, Paula Kroger. And Paula told me that I can't pay you what you're worth, but I can make it the best place you ever worked. And that's been totally true. And I'm an Eagle Scout, and I believe in giving back. And about 11 years ago, when you looked at what was happening in public media digitally, they had made some strides, but there was a lot of room for improvement. There was no live linear streaming happening. There was multiple websites for video as well as content. And so I felt like it was the right time to give back, but also to stay in media and work for this national treasure and to make sure that it's around for my grandkids someday.
Well, speaking of that, there have been some cuts to public broadcasting recently. Can you talk about if that's affected your section of PBS?
Sure. At PBS, we've had some reductions to our budget because public media and PBS is a membership organization. So the way the funding works is local stations pay dues to PBS, and in exchange for those dues, they get access to content and services like the app. And what's happening at the local station level with the defunding from the rescission a few months ago was the Corporation of Public Broadcasting was defunded. That's the public entity founded by President Johnson that gives money to local stations. So depending on the size of your market, the size of your station, that percentage of the budget could be as high as 50% of your budget or as low as, 8 to 10%. So our stations across the board are definitely feeling it. We reduced the dues to help them, and we've had to do reductions at PBS from staffing and others to compensate. Other areas that were impacted were the kids area. The Department of Education funding was stopped after 30 years. That's what funded a lot of the children's content and games. A little bit of funding from the Corporation of Public Broadcasting goes into some of our shows directly. So we're working through all of that. We are still here. We are still serving the American public, but we are having to do it with less resources. And so it's requiring us to be even more thoughtful, looking for more ways to scale and looking at more ways to save money.
Well, speaking of that, how does technology and today's technology, maybe even AI, the cloud, how does that help you deal with the fact that you're working with less staff?
We like to say we're small but mighty. A lot of people don't realize the sheer volume and size of what we do. We're streaming anywhere from 400 to 500 million streams a month. We're quite large. We're also doing live linear streaming at the same time. And then on top of all that, of course, we're running broadcast operations as well in support of our stations. Local stations obviously handle the local area, but we have to get content to them. So what we're doing is we're trying to build solutions at scale for local stations, and that happens in many different ways. We have different tools, like we have our own custom CMS for a station that build a website, so they don't have to pay for that. The PBS app is fully localizable, so if you were to download the app here in New York, where we are, WNET 13 PBS would pop up, but if you were, say, in Arlington, Virginia, you would have a choice between WEDA, Maryland Public Television, and Howard University. And that localization then enables the local stations to customize. So they can put their content front and center. The donations go to the local station. And instead of having individual apps from every station in America, there's a centralized one that provides all this at scale.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like who built it out?
Who built the app?
Yeah.
So that's through my team. We have a great team. We used some outside third-party developers to help supplement that team. It's not like it's a multiple 100,000 team like one of the large streaming services. We're much smaller, but it's all done custom because that localization piece that I mentioned is quite complicated. And when you start looking at what we're doing, there are no off-the-shelf solutions that can enable that level of customization, that level of local control at a large platform.
Now, recently, I believe that you started working with some AWS technology. Can you talk
Yes.
about what that is and how it helps?
Yeah, sure. So we've been on AWS since about 2009. AWS handles all of our cloud infrastructure. We've done work with AWS Bedrock. That is what powers the recommendation engine on the PBS app and pbs.org. And then most recently, we did some work with the AWS Innovation Labs, where we are taking AWS Bedrock and Claude and using it to metadata tag about 700,000 assets. And what this Gen AI tool can do is instead of having a person try to metadata tag every single video file, the machine's doing it. And that can be highly more efficient, but it also provides standards. Because as I mentioned, we allow localization. So when a local station uploads a local show, having the AI tool do the metadata tagging enables standardization for the engine so that local content has an equal chance of showing up as a national file. And so that's what makes all this super complicated, but it's also super exciting because that tool is improving that recommendation engine, which is we're seeing in higher engagement, higher video views from the consumer. And we also have higher consumer testing scores too.
Now, you were at NAB New York. You had a panel, I believe. Can you tell us what the panel was?
So the panel was specifically with AWS and talking about this work that we're doing with the Gen AI and the metadata and just in general, all the work that we do, kind of innovation. We have an innovation team at PBS and they are constantly looking at different tools or functionality that we can try and bring to product. Not everything becomes a product. Currently, they're doing some more work with the AWS Innovation Lab and Gen AI around the PBS Learning Media. That's a separate product, where it has over 1 million teachers registered. It's how we help bring PBS content into the classroom. It's all free for teachers, and they can search by topic, age, grade. It'll generate a lesson plan for them, and then it'll have all the clips. So they're working on improving that. And then they're also doing some work on a code engine to help us with code writing at PBS.
Well, Ira, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. I know it's a crazy show. Is there anything that I haven't asked that you think is important?
Gosh, I think what's important is, especially now, support from viewers like you is more important than ever. So I will say that. And I will also say that it's really at the local station level that makes us different and what makes us special. And being involved with your local station in any way is always going to be helpful. And remember, it's your station.